Hello and welcome back to the Cybersecurity Crash Course. This is Lesson 3. If you have not watched the previous lessons, I highly recommend that you stop, go back and watch those other 2 lessons. There's lots of valuable information in there that you're going to need to understand this lesson, and come back to Lesson 3. So this is Lesson 3 and we're going to be talking about physical security. Before we dive in, don't forget, go get the companion guide at the link provided above. There will also be a link down below the video where you can get this guide. It will take you through some exercises. Any links that we mention, tools that we mention in the video will be linked in there for you to go check out. So when it comes to cybersecurity, physical security is super important. And the reason why, and what you have to know is this: if an attacker can gain physical access to a system, there is a 99% chance that they will be able to get access to all of the data on it. Yes, there are controls you can put in place to protect that data, but if an attacker has physical access, most of the time they can get that data off of it. Even if the device is encrypted, there are certain levels of attackers who can get that data off. So to demonstrate this, I have a little demo set up in the lab to show you a way that we have used physical access in the past on penetration tests to gain access to systems. So let's go take a look at that inside the lab. So like we mentioned, I want to show you an example of how an attacker can take over your computer when they have physical access. So what I've done here is I have my lab server, and I have a virtual machine on it with Windows 10. And I'm going to go ahead and boot from a Windows ISO image or a DVD. The way an attacker would do this is they would either use a DVD or a CD or a USB to do this. But the concept is the same. So I'm going to boot from the Windows 10 boot image. And when I get here, I'm just going to click Next. And this is like I'm installing Windows, but I'm going to choose Repair Your Computer. I'm going to go to Troubleshoot. And I want a command prompt at this point. And again, this is an attack we have used on organizations when we've done pen tests in the past. So X is the directory of the install. And we can see that if we look here, we see this setup.exe. If we do a dir of the users, we see that it's public. So that's the install. That's the boot image. What's going to happen is they're going to figure out which drive is the actual hard drive of the Windows computer, the main computer. So I'll do a dir of C. And I see that's not it. I'm going to do a dir of D. And that looks like the Windows operating system. So I'm going to do dir D. Look at the users. Yes, and now I know that that is the Windows system. So what they're going to do is they're going to go, and what they're going to do here is they're going to copy from the directory. In our case, it's D. So we're going to go copy D /Windows /system 32 /set hc.exe. Set hc.exe is the Windows sticky keys. And I'm going to copy that to the D directory, which is the root drive. That gives me a copy of it in case I need it later. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to overwrite sticky keys with a command prompt. And you'll see why. So we're going to copy -y C, it's D in our case, D Windows /system 32 /set. We want to copy cmd.exe over top of D :/Windows. And set hc.exe. And what I am doing here is I am copying Windows command prompt over top of sticky keys. And the reason I'm doing this is sticky keys runs with admin privileges, and you can run it before you're logged in. So watch this. And it copied it. Now, I'm going to close this out, shut down Windows, and in my case, I have to come back to Hyper-V and change my boot. And I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that boot image. Now, in the real case, the attacker would simply unplug their device. Start this machine back up. So once it's booted and it's ready to log in, when you get to the login screen, all you have to do is hit Shift 5 times. And look what happens. It gave me a command prompt. And I'm going to do a who am I? And I am NT System Authority. That is the highest admin privileges for Windows. So now I can add another admin user to this account. And I'm going to go net user add new user new. I'll just make this clear. Password is password. So this is my new user here. New user, and the password is password. And it's done. I have that user. Now I want to add them to the local admins. So I go net local group administrators new user /add. Now new user is an admin, and let's log in and see. So when we're ready to log in, I can log in as new user now, and my password is password. And look at this, I am into Windows. And now you can see I am logged into Windows, and I am an administrator. So that vulnerability, or that exploit, exemplifies why physical security is so important. If an attacker has physical access to your device, they can get in. Now, encryption would have prevented this from happening, this particular exploit. But like we said before, there are ways into devices if an attacker has access to them. So now that you've seen the sticky key vulnerability, you understand that physical security is important. Like we showed you, we could gain access to those systems simply by plugging in a USB, booting it, and adding a local admin account that we could gain access. There are even other ways to do this. There's a tool called Oathcrack that will allow you to boot off of that, grab the hashes of the password stored on that device, take those offline somewhere else to brute force them using something like rainbow tables, and gain physical access that way. And that one is even worse, because if an administrator in your network or your domain has logged on, those credentials could be stolen. So you understand that cybersecurity begins with strong physical security. If we don't have physical security, we don't have information security. So some of the ways that this could affect you in your organization is, what if an employee goes to a coffee shop, they're doing some work, they take out a flash drive with a bunch of PII of your customers' sensitive data, and they forget to put it back in their bag and they leave it on the table. That is a physical security compromise. Similarly, what if your employee takes a bunch of old bank records or some kind of papers that your organization has, and they throw those away in a trash can? That is another breach, potentially, of physical security, because dumpster diving. Dumpster diving is a method in which an attacker or a bad actor will actually go through your dumpster looking for valuable information. And for us, when it is in scope, that is a physical part of security. We can glean a lot of great information from those paper records that will help us in an attack against an organization. And the final example is, what about a burglar breaks into your organization? Say there's an unlocked window or an unlocked door or a door that's not properly secured. They break into your organization and they steal files or computers. That is another breach of physical security. So these are just 3, but now you understand how breaches of physical security can have such an impact on your cybersecurity and your information security programs. So how can you protect files and devices inside of your organization? So for files, you could store them securely in a locked cabinet or a locked room that is dedicated for sensitive information or systems. And the reason you want a dedicated room is if you have people going in and out of this room, it is less likely that you would notice someone going in for a malicious purpose than if they were going in for a noble purpose. So having a dedicated room with only certain people allowed to enter it means that when someone goes in there, you're going to take notice, and someone that shouldn't be in there is going to stand out a lot. Now look at this picture. Let's say this is a secure room that only authorized people should be able to access. What is the physical security problem in this room? The ceiling tiles. We have done this many times on security audits. A door's locked, there's drop ceilings, no problem. I can pop out a tile, I can hop over the wall, and I'm in your room. So that is something to keep in mind for physical security. Ceiling tiles are a weak point. There are things you can put cages over top, or like a fence material over top of a room, or you could put in a sub-ceiling inside of that room, but that's something to keep in mind. Another one we see a lot is hinges on the outside of a door. If a door opens towards the outside, the hinges could be on the outside. What's a problem with this? Is it is easy to just pop out the hinges and take the door off. It's not hard for an attacker to gain access to that room. On a similar note, we have those bar doorknobs that we see in a lot of commercial facilities. And they usually have like a push button lock. And there is a tool that attackers can use called an under the door shove it tool. It's similar to a coat hanger. It's got a string and a hook. They shove it under the door, they latch onto that handle, and they pull it down. So again, another physical security vulnerability to think about. And the final one that I want to bring attention to is gaps between the door latch mechanism and the door frame. If there's a gap there, an attacker or a bad actor could potentially push some kind of slim device like a knife or some kind of shim into there and open the latch on your door. So when it comes to designing physical security, one of the keys is for protecting files and devices is that secure areas of your organization should be accessed only on a need-to-know basis. Only individuals who have a need to go into that area of your organization should be in there. Let's take a server closet for an example. Your server closet should be locked. Only individuals who need to get to the servers, who need to get to the technology in there, should be allowed to go in there. Everyone else should stay out. If you have a file room where all of your sensitive files are stored, again, same principle. Only individuals who need to get into that room should have access to it. Another step to take is to remind your employees about security issues, and this will fit into your security awareness program. Your employees are busy. They have a lot on their minds. They're trying to get their jobs done. When the day's over, they want to get home. They want to get to their families. They want to get to their children. They want to get to the gym. Wherever they're going, they're in a hurry. They've got social media going off during the day. They've got emails coming in, and their minds are in 10 different directions at once, most of the time, probably. And you have to keep it in front of them, keep them aware of the physical security issues. Remind them to put their files in locked cabinets if the files contain sensitive information. Remind them to log out of network devices and applications when they leave their desk, when they step away, especially in public areas. If they are in an area that the public has access to, you should have auto timeouts on those devices so that even if someone does forget to log out of their device, it will automatically log them out shortly after they walk away. There are other solutions for this. You can use Bluetooth, for an example. And when that individual is out of Bluetooth range, it will log them out of their computers. There's multiple ways to approach it. Third, remind your employees to never leave files or devices unattended. Because what did we say? If an attacker has physical access to the device, they can gain access, just like we looked at in the demo. And finally, perform periodic audits. So maybe you stay after everyone leaves one day and you walk through, find how much sensitive information is left out, make a report on that, and then go over that with those individuals the next day to show them how they are potentially putting your customers' data at risk or your other employees' data at risk. Another important component in this is tracking and management. Being able to track secure devices, the devices that have sensitive information on them, to know at any time who has them, who has responsibility for them, and who has access to them. And only keep files and data that you need on those systems and track who has access to them. So let's say you have a customer database stored on your server. You may have an employee want to pull that database locally, put it on their computer so they can take it home to do some work over the holidays. Bad idea. Leave the data on the server. There's no need to take the risk of putting all of that sensitive data on a device, potentially having a compromise of physical security of that device over the holidays, and putting your customers at risk. But in the case that there is a need to put sensitive information on these devices, track who has access to these devices. And there are even solutions that will give you the physical location of devices so that should they be stolen, you still can know where they are. So how do you go about securing a device so that even if it's stolen, even if something happens, you reduce the risk of compromise of sensitive data? First of all, use strong passwords as a given across cybersecurity. When possible, use multi-factor authentication on these devices. Limit login attempts. When someone logs into an account, when someone logs into a device, after X amount of failed attempts, lock it for a given period of time. Lock them out. And one of the biggest is encrypt portable media. If it moves, you should encrypt it. If it can be stolen, you should encrypt it. This includes laptops, thumb drives. When you send sensitive data to your vendors, like say you send files to an accountant, your servers should be encrypted if they have sensitive data on them. And there's the potential that physical access could be gained to them. And finally, train your employees. Teach them to shred documents that have sensitive information when they are no longer needed. Teach them to erase data correctly, because deleting is not enough, and I'll show you why in just a minute here. Teach them to promote security everywhere, at home, when they're traveling, in the office. If they take their devices home to work in a home office over the weekends or in the evenings, they need to treat the physical security of those devices at home just the same as they do when they're in the office. They shouldn't let someone come up and use their computer. They shouldn't allow their children to play games on those computers. Physical security at home, at the office, and traveling is all the same. And finally, make sure your employees know the response plan. If equipment is stolen or equipment is lost, what do they need to do? What are the next steps that need to be taken, and who should they notify? If they know to do this quickly, they know exactly who to notify. There's still a possibility you can still mitigate the effects of that breach of physical security of those devices. So let's look at why simply erasing data is not enough. So how does the file system on your Windows machine work? And it works the same across many, but we're going to use the Windows NTFS system as an example here. When you have a file, you have a document. This document is made up of what? When you get down to the absolute binary, It's a bunch of zeros and ones, right? Whatever this equates to, the binary is zeros and ones. And these files are not stored necessarily in one place. They're scattered around your hard drive. So inside of Windows, there is what's called a file map, of mapping. And this map takes this file and it maps it across your hard drive to all of the places where bits of data are stored. So we might take this first 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, and we'll store that in one place. We'll take this, we'll store it in another place. And again, these are just made up numbers, binary here. We'll take that part and we'll store that here. We'll take 1110, store it here, and we'll take the final 11 and store it here. And this file is scattered across your computer. When something needs to access this file, it goes to that map and it looks for the file. It takes all of the pieces and does what it needs to do. When you delete a file, when you move it to the recycle bin, all that really happens is this mapping is deleted. The files are still on your system. The mapping is just deleted. And even when you move it from the recycle bin and you get that big notice, are you sure you want to delete this file? It will be permanently deleted. All that's happening is these little blocks are broken up and scattered around your computer in little places it can find to hide them. The data is still there, and it can mostly be recovered. That's why when your hard drive crashes or some other system has crashed, a lot of times there are applications you can use to recover that data. So deleting is simply not enough. When you get rid of a device, you're going to throw it away, you're going to give it to charity, or whatever you're going to do, you need to come up with some other kind of deletion policy. And you can use an overriding system where it will literally take your hard drive and write over every single space. It'll put a bunch of zeros and ones and write over the entire device. And it will do that a couple times so that the original data is completely gone. There are data wiping tools that you can use, but simply deleting the data is not enough.